Steel, 1938. The first story of one of the most popular characters created made it on the newsstand of various shops in America and generated success and money for the company who published his tales. This character is Superman, the last son of Krypton. For around the past 80 years he has been a popular character that can be counted on to make the companies behind him money. Due to his impact on pop culture and millions of people, many TV shows, films, great stories, and some very not so great stories have been published. These two movies are Superman, released in 1978, directed by Richard Donner and starring Christopher Reeve as Superman. The second film is Man of Steel, released in 2013, directed by Zack Snyder, and Henry Cavill is in the role of Superman. The story of both of the films are essentially the same. The planet Krypton is destroyed. Jor-El and his wife Lara send their child to Earth, where he is found and adopted by a couple named the Kents, who are unable to have children of their own. Because he is from another world, his physical abilities and senses are heightened, giving him superhuman powers. Both movies show his struggles to become part of society. In the original, it uses linear storytelling, whereas Man of Steel adopts a non-linear approach. The roles that female characters are portrayed in are indicative of the times in which they are made. In particular, Lois Lane. The film has her rescued by Superman, thus giving her the inside story for her news articles. Her role is a subordinate role, as a love interest and damsel in distress, whereas in Man of Steel, Lois is proactive in finding out who Clark really is by researching unusual events, interviewing witnesses, and doing her job as a professional journalist. She comes across as a well-represented female character, with all the values and issues of women in the modern day, as opposed to the 1970s Lois, who has a lesser role, and though at the start is attempted to be presented as a progressive character due to occupation, role and work-focused nature, but is in fact little different from the stereotypical female roles from past decades. Lois does nothing to help defeat Lex Luthor, the villain of the film, whereas the later Lois talks to the hologram of Jor-El and acquires the knowledge of how to stop General Zod from terraforming Earth. In Superman, Martha Kent has a small role, only really thinking her son is a gift from God at the start and letting Clark go on his off-screen journey. In Man of Steel, we see his relationship with her, his care for her, and how she plays her part in what makes him Superman. In conclusion, to the portrayal of women in both, Man of Steel shows female characters in a more positive light because of how much more key equal rights had become in society and how the women were presented in the film. The story of Superman in both films is basically an adapted story of Jesus, a child sent to Earth by its father to give the planet hope and an ideal for humans to strive towards. America in the 1970s was a more religious society than in 2013 and portrays the values prevalent in the 1950s, where his early stories set and reinforced by the attitudes of his adopted Christian parents, who see his arrival as a gift from God. The treatment of Clark as a Jesus figure is different in both movies. The Christopher Reeve version is very meek and mild, turning the other cheek, portraying strong Christian and American values. This is demonstrated by the fact that he's anti-drinking, anti-smoking, is told by his adopted father to never lie, and he tells Lois that
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
Man of Steel, Henry Cavill's version of Clark, whilst turning the other cheek, as shown in a tense bar scene, is told by a barmaid that it is not worth retaliating, so he leaves without fighting, though demolishes his antagonist's truck outside. This version is trying to find his role in society, much like modern male expectation of behaviour in society. Both of the films came out in times when there was a decrease in religious activity in America. In the 1950s, after the war, religion became popular once again until the 1960s, where society began to change and question religious organisations and beliefs. This continued up until the end of the 1970s. At the start of the 2000s, the number of religious followers was steady, until after 2002, where the decline was double that of in the 60s and 70s. This could be because of 9/11, with Americans losing faith in God. The reason the two films play into the religious aspect of the times is to try and create this character of hope that people can look up to as belief in gods are decreasing, or to try and turn more people to religion, presenting what Jesus and God will do to protect you in the shape of Superman. Religion is also put more into play in the later film due to very Jesus-like poses, the fact that the Genesis Chamber takes its name from the first book in the Bible, and the fact that Clark visits a church to try and find an answer to how he can defeat Zod. In Man of Steel, Krypton is doomed because of a changing climate, and the planet is getting too warm for anyone to survive. This causes Krypton to explode due to the heat. At the time the movie was being written, and beforehand, climate change and global warming were big issues that were growing bigger, and the planet was and still is in need of a solution to solve the crisis. The use of this being what is causing the fate of Krypton can show us what will happen to the Earth if it is not stopped before our time is up. It is a call to action for everybody, and especially the government, due to how Krypton is portrayed, to try and do their part in order to save ourselves before it is too late. In the original Superman film, Krypton dies due to the planet's sun going supernova. The death of Krypton and its inhabitant is not due to the failure of its people for causing it, but is a natural process for stars that leads to the end of Kryptonians. For Man of Steel, it is still the people's fault, and it makes them less godlike to how they are presented in the 1978 film. One of the main themes of Man of Steel is that it is very much a story that focuses on the relationship between a father and his son. Throughout the film, we follow Clark trying to decide whether he is an alien or if he is really human, as well as who his father is, Jor-El or Jonathan Kent. At the end, he accepts both heritages and both fathers after he's looked back on his relationship with his real dad through a hologram and his adopted father through flashbacks, seeing that he has always tried to prepare him for the moment where he would have to reveal himself to the world.